Great. So this is kind of topical today, just because we've got a pretty big game coming on. So essentially, I built this project in a data visualization class. I wanted to kind of learn a couple of things, but there's a really long title here. But essentially what I wanted to analyze is all players on the ice at once, how they compare and how we can find similar kind of groups. I'm quite keen on analytics, just because I probably read a little bit too much Nate Silver. But essentially, what I want to do here is I want to go through a demo. I'm going to talk about what we tried to do. I'm going to talk about why we're doing this. I'm going to talk about what is currently being done and what are the limits. I'm going to talk about what's new in this approach versus what's kind of being done out there. I'm going to talk about the stack and where it was deployed so that you folks see a little bit more about what's kind of under the hood inside baseball here. I'm going to talk about the process in building this piece because this is kind of a full analytics website. So I thought that this would be fun. I'm going to talk about what I would do if I had more time and some conclusions here. So I'll share the slides shortly here on the Slack, but I've got a demo which is on Vercel, which is pretty cool. We're going to go take a look at that. There's also a repo, and if you have any questions about this later on, if you're just interested in analytics or you like hockey stats like I do, you can just message me on the Slack. So essentially, this is the, I call it a POIU, which is a player on ice unit comparison tool. And essentially, the main idea here is that you'd search a player, so let's say McDavid, right? And what happens here is on the left side, as this is loading, there's some crunching that's going on in the background. Essentially, it figures out the most common players he's played with. Is this big enough for everybody in the back? Yeah, ish. Yeah, that's fine. Here, bigger. Yeah, that's gonna not look good. Essentially, what I wanted to do is with this project is learn a lot more about D3. So this first kind of diagram is a network diagram where you have each POIU. So essentially the black dots are each player, and the connections between them are how similar they are based on our similarity algorithm that I'm going to be talking about in a little bit. So we've got essentially that. On the right side, you have the comparables. So essentially, based on offensive and defensive shot metrics, we see that Jordan Staal, Jason Martinook, and Jesper Fast is most similar, which is kind of interesting. Very surprising. So there's a couple of things here as well. This might just be because the sample size is pretty small here for Teddy Bluger and kind of Philip Hronek. What else we kind of created there is essentially a scatter plot that shows a little bit more of the shots and where they're generated by essentially by who on the ice. So you could see here where we got the light green here. So Hyman doesn't take a shot kind of like outside of the dots. He's always mucking it up there. So that's pretty cool. You kind of see in pink as well that Bouchard is taking some slap shots from the point, right? So you get to kind of analyze where and who is kind of generating those shots. Now as well, we created a heat map, which is kind of cool, just to see where shots are being conceded. And we essentially normalized both charts per game to kind of see a little bit more about how people are kind of generating shots and seeing some of that information. So essentially, just a big analytics project. I wanted to essentially go through the process of kind of searching, going through and building search and the whole process behind it. Now, essentially, what we tried to do, so a searchable to essentially get these player on ice units. So that could be for whatever situation it is, whether it's 5-on-5 or power play or penalty kill. It compares that POIU as a whole to essentially similar POIUs that you may find. And as well, I just wanted to create some visualizations with D3 because this is just learning more about D3 in that library, which is a very popular charting library. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm doing this. As well, I wanted to build an end-to-end visualization project performing all the steps of an analytics site. So data ingestion, the backend REST API, the front-end app, using AI, which is not LLMs, and using D3 and deploying the whole thing. And as well, my 12-year-old self just loves hockey stats. Like, I'm just like a nerd at heart. So yeah, so I just didn't want to build on boring stats. So essentially, how this project is different is that most limitations on statistics that are done are only on forward lines and defensive lines, or the player or the team as a whole, not essentially comparing it as a 5-man unit, right? So what I wanted to see is, is this valuable? Is this useful? And just kind of see the stats that are coming out of it. So yeah, so it doesn't focus on the unit as a whole. So what's new in our approach here? Yeah, visualizing the data for an entire POYU and creating the similarity metrics, which I can talk about in a bit, and finding comparables across the league. So what is the stack here? So for the backend, we have a separate backend that's running on DigitalOcean. I'll talk about that in a second. And the front end, which is using React. So Flask and Python on the backend with SQL Alchemy and Postgres. Postgres is the DB. For the similarity algorithm, we used pandas and scikit-learn to essentially kind of create the similarity there. And on the front end, I used d3.js for all the graphing, React with Next.js and ShadCN for the components, and React Query for all of the data fetching there. As well, yeah, so how was it deployed? All deployed on DigitalOcean. So VPS with Ubuntu 24.10, with Nginx and gUnicorn, and a managed database. If you're a student, please use your free credits. And if you haven't signed up and you just graduated, you should do that right now. And the front end's just deployed on Vercel, as these slides are as well. But I just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of an insight. I know that this is like a big wall of text, but about how I kind of went about and created this project. So the process was create a static UI that is janky. For those of you who have seen my beautiful Excalidraw drawings, I know that some of you are moved from these beautiful things. So it doesn't need to be fancy here, but just essentially getting a mock-up done so that I can figure out the kind of like what I want there, right? I needed to find all of the sources for the data that's needed. So I used something called moneypuck.com, which is really great, and the unofficial NHL API. They essentially expose it, and there's a whole bunch of projects there that you can get it. I needed to get every shifts for every game in a season. So there's a lot of shifts. A game is 60 minutes for those of you who aren't familiar, and each shift is like 35 seconds. So there's a lot of data. And then I basically had to create the process to ingest this data, right? So I ingested all the shots first, which had data like shot distance and an expected goal metric, which is also using some artificial intelligence that's taken from moneypuck.com. But I needed to essentially reconcile every shot to each player that's on the ice. So go through all of the shifts and just say, yep, these 5 players are there. But one thing that, if you've seen hockey before, right, sometimes it's a little bit weird because you have players that are changing live, right? So we had like 2%, I think it was like 1.8% of shots that were taken with like 7 or 8 players on the ice because there was a line change happening. So those are some very interesting things that came from that data. So what I did then is to kind of simplify the process, I just exported all of that data to a CSV, which for those of you who haven't dealt with CSV, it's just an Excel spreadsheet, I'm sure that you have. And then we imported that into a Jupyter notebook that we kind of fixed up afterwards to essentially do the analysis. The big idea that we did there is using k-nearest neighbors, we picked essentially the 5 nearest, and we clustered them together with some other jazz here. My colleague, who was an intern for the Tampa Bay Lightning, dealt with quite a bit of this. So I might not have all of the answers for that one. But then what we needed to do is create an API for all of that data and all of those endpoints, and then iterate through, well, once we get the search done, iterate through the process of what do we want the chart to look like, right? I know that those beautiful janky diagrams in Excalidraw don't tell the entire story, but we wanted to see where, kind of look at some other charts, get some inspiration, and then kind of shape the data to what we need there. And then once we got the backend API working, we just created the chart, which you can see here. It's the same for the front end and the back end, or sorry, the POIU that is being compared on the left side, and essentially its most similar kind of groupings there, which I thought was pretty interesting. And yeah, so that's essentially the process. You just kind of iterated through 7 to build that, okay? Just kind of discussing about what I would do if I had more time. Yeah, fix just general jank in the code base. I had 2 months, so this was a little bit rushed. I'm sure that students can very much feel that pain. One of the ideas that I really wanted to do with this project is make it so that teams could essentially select a player. So let's say Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. You could essentially click him and replace him with Nathan McKinnon, for example, and just kind of see how the line would perform and seeing comparables, so that maybe NHL teams or just fans alike could see what happens if we traded, you know, Victor Arvidsson for a used pair of socks. Just, no, just sorry, sorry. This is being recorded. Sorry, for Jeff Skinner or something like that, who is not there. Sorry. So essentially, I wanted to make that on the fly, but again, with some considerations there, there's a lot more kind of going on. It's already a little bit slow just because I had to rush it. So this data is only for that's being used here is only for the season 2023-2024. It took about 10 hours to ingest and clean the first time. So what I wanted to do is kind of go back all the way to 2008 so that you could see, you know, Zach Hyman, Brian Nugent-Hopkins, and Connor McDavid. They would be more similar to the Crosby years with Malkin, and you could kind of compare it through eras, so that you could see, hey, my team is similar to this, and hopefully they'll win a cup. And as well, make the mobile, the front end a little bit mobile friendly and cleaner. This is more of like a D3 thing that I had, because I'm just still kind of learning it. And for anybody who's dealt with D3, it's sometimes picky who its friends are. So that was essentially it. And just general conclusions. I think it was pretty cool and passes the interesting test for me. So I thought that was cool. Is it valuable or useful? I think that one of the things that I found most interesting is not necessarily the 5-on-5 data, but the power play data. Now that's going to take a little bit of time to essentially kick in here. Man, great. And I thought that this was more similar than the 5-on-5. So you can see there that our power play, which has 4 forwards and a defenseman, is most similar to Toronto's, but I thought that the scatter plot kind of shows like a more defined system, which I thought was very interesting. And again, the dark green there, no surprise on who that is. And the light blue at the top, you can get, and you can see that Draisaitl kind of like right around here is kind of taking shots right in his office. So I thought that that was actually just really interesting and a fun project. What else did will I build more of this? It would have been a lot more fun if I wasn't trying to do so many things at once during the semester. So that was good. Learned a ton. If you want to read the report, if you're interested, or if you want some light bedtime reading, you can essentially send me a message on Slack, and I'll send it. As well, if you know someone at Puckpedia, let me know. You know, got to shoot your shot. You know. But besides that, that's it. I can search for a player if you want, if you folks have suggestions. But that's kind of the whole idea. Just a fun little analytics project.